Welcome back to Living in Color. Last week we talked about the N-word with rapper Sean Leon and author Dalton Higgins. We left you with Sean explaining why he chooses to use the N-word, but why he feels people outside the Black community shouldn't be using it. Dalton, on the other hand, says instead of using the N-word, there are other options out there. I mean, I know you think in terms of the hip-hop culture, and in your music you use it, but doesn't that juxtapose with what, I mean, everybody else does? What's kind of the norm out there? Like you said, we would never use it in broadcasting. We're using it now in a certain context.
Right. It's because we've made it to be this thing that for us is, again, magical. For me, it's a term of endearment. And you want that. And you might even have a genuine love for me. You might not be Black and have genuine love for me. You could be obsessed with the culture. You could listen to rap all day. You could change the way you dress. You could change the way you pronounce and enunciate your words because you're so obsessed with Black culture just globally. But that still doesn't make you Black. Nothing will make you Black.
Right.
And that's what's important to me, like getting that across. And again, like, you know, it's difficult because, you know, I put it in songs and then I perform. My crowds are, you know, there's a mixture of races within the crowds, but there are obviously a lot of, you know, white people, you know, Asian people, there are all types of people. And I can't honestly say that while I'm performing and I'm performing these words that I'm looking in the crowd making sure
like, you can sing along to my songs, but don't say that word.
Each person is saying, you know, at the same time, you know, like I can't censor people in the crowd, but if somebody that looks like me in the crowd hears the wrong person saying it and then that person gets a punch in the mouth, well then maybe they'll learn their lesson. Maybe next time they won't say it.
You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. That's an interesting point. I'm just going to expand on that, is that context is everything, okay? So I give you another example. Let's say the B word, you know, bitch, okay? So you're here with another woman, it can be a racialized woman, Caucasian, indigenous, doesn't matter. And you all use the term bitch to refer to one another, because that happens like every day ad nauseum, around the clock. Just go on these social, that's insider trading, right? That's you as two women have reclaimed the term, and you say, you
I
know,
wouldn't do that.
Right? Okay.
You guys can't say that. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Exactly. Now, so context is everything. Now, if I were to now say Farah Nasser, you know, the B word, right?
Yeah.
That takes on a whole other context, right? So context
Absolutely.
is everything. So the idea here around, you know, non-Black communities, you know, using the word, for one, it's not their job to dictate to our community how the word should be used and how it should be circulated, and the who, what, where, what, when, and how of the word, like at all. You know, that's insider trading. No different than, you know, women, if me as a male.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I'd say to that.
Yeah. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I think the number one issue is just the fact that it's the number one most interesting, most sought after culture. It's the coolest thing. I work a lot of corporate jobs. I work a lot of corporate jobs, and I do a lot of independent work as well. And when I'm working the corporate things, 9 out of 10 times, it's like I'm in that room so that they can tap my Blackness. They can tap into my coolness. They can monetize
You're the cool factor.
Right, they can monetize it, package it, and then now present it to the masses in a way that's safe, in a way that won't lead to any serious consequences or repercussions. At least I'm sure that's the intention.
Let's talk about hip hop history. There was a rap group called NWA, acronym that stands for Niggas with Attitude. So when we talk about the explosion of hip hop on the Billboard charts, NWA, they went to #1 on the Billboard charts without any commercial radio airplay, right? No video airplay. Blew up completely, sold millions of records. The name of the band is Niggas with Attitude, okay? And they have songs, and this is some hip hop geek stuff, but they have, on one of their albums, you know, they say the word I think it's about 249 times. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like 12 tracks, like every song's like, you know, it is, and this, and this, and so you see, so that just gets out there in the popular culture.
And not only that, again, through the community, like I can have friends, like I'm definitely guilty of calling friends that aren't Black my nigga. So it's because, again, when I found the word, this was just like a deeper bond. This is just like, man, you know what I'm going through. Like, you know that you're seeing the same traumatic, you deal with the same traumas that I'm dealing with, right? So we got a deep relationship. So when you finally get to a point where you can connect with somebody and there's just love there, I'm guilty of calling people that aren't Black my nigga. And to me, that's totally fine. Like, do they go back and call me their nigga? Absolutely not. And that's just like
That's-
understood. And again, I could talk about my situation. I could talk about how I deal with it. I could talk about what happens when I'm in rooms with different people and the subject comes up. That's just me. I can't speak for, how people are talking when they're in the privacy of their own homes. Like, do you think I'm naive to believe that there are people that aren't black that are singing my songs word for word, and when they're at home, they just skip
Say
that
the
word?
Yeah, it's not happening.
I
But
doubt it.
You
I
said
doubt
something
it.
interesting. Like you're saying that you use it in endearment, for endearment for somebody, but they can't use it in that same term of
Because I'm
endearment because they
aware
don't
of the
own
history. Because I'm aware of the history. Because I'm aware of when I'm walking down the street and a cop car is driving down the street, I always have a sense of panic. They don't. So I have friends that I'll call my nigga, but he'll make a joke that he can drive whatever speed limit in whatever zone and not worried about getting pulled over because he is a white male driving the car. And we make the same joke that if I'm driving the car following every single law, there's still a high chance that I might get pulled over because of the color of my skin. So for those reasons, I'm like, I don't want to share this word because you haven't had to share the pain with it. You've gotten to experience all the greatness. Again, when I'm using it in rap songs too, it's almost like a literary device at this point. Like, I don't think I use it excessively. I use it for emphasis. Like, certain lines just don't cut through. They don't hit the same unless I use that word at the very end of it,
You're not a fan of using it,
That's
though, in
interesting.
music.
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. I think this is my challenge to, hip hop generationers, myself included, but rappers, is that there's so many other alternative words you can use. Like, there are just a ton, like we're in Toronto. My background is like Jamaican descent, so if we say, if the term is supposed to be a euphemism, like nigga is a euphemism for like my brother, and there's just a bunch of, you're a wordsmith, I'm a wordsmith, I've written 6 books, you know what I mean? We're wordsmiths, and I just think that there are just so many other, I'm of a Caribbean descent, Jamaican descent, and we would call each other like brethren, what's up brethren, what's up brother, what's up, there's just like about 1,000 other words that could be used, so from an artistic standpoint, I find it's a bit dull and uninteresting to hear just a lot of rappers using N-word, 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 like when there's a dictionary of words, they're just, they're wordsmiths, so I'm expecting some like wordplay, different things happening. Other literary devices, not just the N-word all the time. So I find that extremely dull.
I think that's almost an unfair statement to say because I think the use of the word nigga in a verse doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't metaphors in the verse as well. There aren't also similes in that verse as well. There aren't also personification and alliteration and all these other type of literary devices.
Wordsmith.
So what I'm saying, like, again, if I'm using the word, I'm using it because it's my choice at the time that this is the most appropriate word to use. This is going to get my point across. This is how I can convey the exact feeling that I want. This word at the end of it just does that. It just hits differently.
Okay,
again, it's like not necessarily saying that you use it all the time. And again, if you want to use it all the time, that's your prerogative. I would never tell a black person how to use the word, when to use the word, when it's appropriate. It's their word. They were born black. It's your word. We've reclaimed it. People have like died for that. It's ours, But for me, certain lines, they just hit harder. It's just like there's a certain understanding, the way they come across, the way they kind of slice the page.
Would you say comparable to using like say the F word or something? Like it's
absolutely, and it's not this isn't exclusive to the N word. Like you had mentioned the B word earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes like
to drive home a point.
Right, and it's not necessarily at all. It doesn't at all even mean that it's a blanketed term for women because the bitch could be the coffee table I just stubbed my toe on.
Right.
It has nothing to for me. It's just like It just hits a little bit harder.
Now here's the other piece where it hits harder, but in a negative way is what I found in different parts of the world, and that's what I found disturbing. It helped me sort of rethink, the usage of the term here in the West is what you have happening. I was in this town called Essen, Germany. It's a small industrial town that's quite pretty obscure. So it's no Berlin. And I remember kids, they're using the term, they're using the N-word, and I'm like, it's a pretty homogenous environment. It's mostly white, mostly male, a sort of frat boy environment. And the way the term just was rolling off their tongue so casually and loosely. And again, me being a bit of a student of human history and being black and of African descent, in Germany, there was a feeling of awkwardness, of dread, of do I need to address this, of anger, of hurt, of pain. And as I dug a bit deeper, what I found in some of my research is you have stores, because a lot of people outside of the West, they don't have the context that we do. They can't quite articulate like say Sean Leon and myself can, the context, the history, when and how it should be used and by whom. So they just use it like a blanket term. So even in parts of Asia, you have stores, like this is how crazy it is. When we talk about hip hop is like the predominant youth culture around the globe, and never mind Toronto or North America. So you have, Asian entrepreneurs that have stores called, the N-word, clothing stores, like apparel, hip-hop clothing apparel stores. I can't blame them because they look at it as a term of endearment. Like they hear us saying it in the West and they hear Jay-Z saying it and Kanye West. They're just like, yeah, it's a term of endearment. It's a great thing. I'm going to call my retail outlet the N-word. Well, that's a bit disturbing.
That's where I feel you up until a certain point, and then I disagree because I go, if they're so into the culture that they're following it's the music they're consuming, it's the culture they're digesting, then there's also a responsibility on these people to know what it actually means, where it comes from, and why it's inappropriate. For every rap song that has the N-word in it, there is a conversation elsewhere on YouTube, on social media, explaining why you're not allowed to use it. So what I see when I hear that is I see this. I see people exploiting the culture. They're using that word because they see the success of it. They see how they can monetize it. So they're exploiting the culture. And what's happening is there's nobody from our culture in these areas to check these people when they're going way too far left. And I think, again, it's just like, just being irresponsible. And again, more proof that our culture is number one. It's like the most exploited. They're using it in a way to make money. It's not about sensitivity. It's not about the actual origin of the word. It's not like they're in there and you walk in and they say, welcome to da-da-da, my nigga. That's not what it's about. They're trying to attract a certain amount of people to their store to make enough money. So for me, it's like, I could stop saying the word completely. That wouldn't stop people from saying it. All I'm doing is I'm silencing and censoring myself for the same type of person that's been oppressing my people for generations. And that seems like I'm conceding to them, and that's just something I would never, ever, ever do.
It's been really enlightening to hear two different perspectives on this word that holds so much power for so many people. Thank you both for being so candid and sharing this with us. I know our audience learned a lot, and thank you for watching Living in Color. Thank you for watching Living in Color. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have an idea for a future Living in Color episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comment section.